Respect is not something that can be demanded with loud words or forced through intimidation. It is built through character, consistency, and the standards you refuse to compromise. The moment you begin tolerating disrespect simply to avoid conflict, you quietly tell the world that your boundaries are negotiable. People rarely begin with great acts of disrespect. They start with small tests, a dismissive comment, a broken promise, a joke at your expense, an interruption when you speak. These moments may seem insignificant, but they reveal something important. Human beings constantly observe what others are willing to accept. Every action you ignore becomes part of the expectations people build around you. Disrespect rarely appears in its most obvious form. It almost always begins with small moments that seem too insignificant to confront. A sarcastic remark disguised as humor, a promise that is repeatedly broken, a conversation where your words are constantly interrupted, or a situation where your time is treated as less valuable than everyone else's. These actions may appear harmless in isolation, but human behavior is shaped by patterns, not isolated events. Every interaction teaches people something about what you are willing to accept. When disrespect is ignored again and again, it quietly becomes the standard. People naturally repeat behaviors that produce no consequences, and over time, those behaviors become habits. This is why the smallest acts of disrespect deserve your attention. They are often the beginning of much larger problems. Many individuals believe remaining silent will keep the peace, but silence without boundaries often creates the opposite effect. Instead of earning appreciation, it invites greater disregard. Human nature constantly searches for limits. Whether consciously or unconsciously, people observe how far they can go before someone says enough. If no limit is ever established, they continue moving the boundary farther with every interaction. What begins as occasional disrespect eventually becomes normal treatment because it has never been challenged. This is not always the result of cruelty. Sometimes people simply adjust their behavior according to the standards you consistently communicate. If you repeatedly sacrifice your dignity to avoid uncomfortable conversations, others begin believing that your dignity is not something you value highly yourself. The strongest individuals understand that respect is maintained through consistency rather than occasional reactions. They do not explode with anger after months of silent tolerance because they never allow disrespect to reach that point. Instead, they address problems early, calmly, and without unnecessary emotion. Emotional reactions often shift attention away from the real issue and toward your behavior. Calm confidence keeps the focus where it belongs. A simple statement delivered with certainty often carries more authority than a lengthy argument filled with frustration. There is no need to raise your voice when your standards are already clear. The person who remains composed demonstrates control over both the situation and themselves. This emotional discipline makes boundaries far more effective because they are rooted in principle rather than impulse. Many people fear confronting disrespect because they worry about losing relationships. Yet relationships built upon tolerated disrespect are already unstable. A connection that survives only because one person continuously accepts poor treatment is not founded on mutual respect, but on imbalance. Healthy relationships become stronger when boundaries are established because both people understand what is acceptable and what is not. Those who genuinely value you will adjust their behavior once they recognize your standards. Those who refuse reveal that they valued your compliance more than your character. This understanding frees you from unnecessary guilt. You are not responsible for making everyone comfortable at the expense of your own self-respect. Every time you calmly defend your boundaries, you strengthen your confidence, you prove to yourself that your values are not negotiable and that your peace deserves protection. These repeated moments gradually transform your identity. You stop viewing yourself as someone who must tolerate poor treatment to maintain harmony and begin seeing yourself as someone worthy of respect regardless of who stands before you. Others notice this shift because confidence changes posture, communication, decisions, and presence. The world responds differently to individuals who consistently honor themselves. Their words carry greater weight because they do not contradict them through weak actions. Their presence commands attention because it is supported by unwavering standards rather than desperate approval seeking. Over time, people learn that respect is not optional in your presence, not because you demand it through force, but because your consistent behavior leaves no room for anything less. Every relationship in your life is shaped by the standards you consistently uphold. People are not only influenced by what you say, they are influenced far more by what you repeatedly allow. Your boundaries become silent instructions that teach others how to interact with you. If you constantly accept broken promises, disrespectful language, unnecessary criticism, or repeated violations of your time, you communicate that these behaviors carry no real consequences. Human nature quickly adapts to the limits that are presented. When no limits exist, expectations continue to expand until your needs and dignity are pushed aside. This is why boundaries are not acts of selfishness, but acts of self-respect. They protect your peace while showing others that your values are not open for negotiation. Many people avoid setting boundaries because they fear rejection, conflict, or being misunderstood. They convince themselves that remaining agreeable will preserve relationships, but relationships built on endless compromise eventually become one-sided. The more you sacrifice your own standards to satisfy everyone else, the more invisible your own needs become. Over time, resentment quietly replaces genuine connection because you begin giving more than you receive. Healthy relationships do not require one person to abandon themselves. They require mutual respect, honesty, and accountability. A boundary simply communicates where respect ends and unacceptable behavior begins. It is not an attack against another person. It is a declaration of what you will and will not tolerate. The strongest individuals understand that boundaries do not need to be loud to be effective. They rarely rely on emotional outbursts or endless explanations. Instead, they communicate calmly and consistently. A simple refusal often carries more authority than a lengthy justification. When you explain yourself excessively, you unintentionally invite debate over decisions that should already belong to you. Confidence does not seek permission to protect its peace. It simply acts in alignment with its principles. This calm consistency often surprises people who have become accustomed to unlimited access to your time and energy. Some will respect your boundaries immediately because they value the relationship enough to adjust their behavior. Others may resist because your new standards remove privileges they previously enjoyed. Their resistance reveals an important truth. They were comfortable with the version of you that placed their needs above your own. Do not mistake their disappointment for evidence that your boundaries are wrong. Growth often changes the dynamics of relationships because healthier standards expose unhealthy expectations. Learning to say no is one of the most valuable skills you can develop. Every unnecessary yes is a hidden no to your goals, your peace, your family, or your personal growth. Your time is finite, and every commitment carries a cost. When you become intentional about where your attention goes, you begin living according to purpose instead of pressure. Boundaries also strengthen your confidence because every promise you keep to yourself reinforces the belief that your needs matter. You stop seeking validation through endless availability and begin recognizing that your value is not determined by how much you sacrifice for others. Instead, your value is reflected in the discipline with which you protect your character, your time, and your emotional well-being. As this mindset becomes part of your identity, people naturally adjust the way they treat you. They recognize that your kindness is genuine but not limitless, your generosity is sincere but not exploitable, and your respect is freely given but never available at the expense of your own dignity. In this way, Your boundaries become silent teachers, shaping every relationship by showing the world exactly how you expect to be treated through the unwavering example of how you first choose to treat yourself. The greatest advantage you can possess in any conflict is not physical strength, status, or intelligence. It is emotional control. Most people believe power belongs to the person who speaks the loudest, reacts the fastest, or displays the strongest emotions. In reality, the opposite is often true. The person who cannot control their emotions becomes predictable, and predictability creates vulnerability. Human nature is remarkably skilled at identifying emotional weaknesses. The moment someone discovers what provokes your anger, fear, or insecurity, they gain the ability to influence your behavior. This is why emotional discipline is not simply a personal virtue. It is a strategic advantage. Every time you react impulsively, you surrender control of the situation to the person who provoked you. They no longer need to defeat your argument because they have already disturbed your peace. True strength begins when you refuse to let another person's behavior dictate your emotional state. Remaining calm does not mean accepting disrespect or pretending that harmful actions do not matter. It means choosing your response instead of allowing your emotions to choose it for you. There is a profound difference between responding with intention and reacting out of impulse. Reaction is immediate, emotional, and often regrettable. Response is thoughtful, measured, and guided by principle rather than temporary feelings. Many people damage relationships, careers, and opportunities because they mistake emotional expression for emotional strength. They believe that saying whatever they feel in the heat of the moment demonstrates honesty. More often, it demonstrates a lack of self-control. Words spoken in anger cannot be recalled once they leave your mouth, and the consequences frequently outlast the emotion that created them. Emotional control allows you to pause before speaking, giving wisdom the opportunity to replace impulse. This brief moment of restraint often determines whether a situation escalates or quietly resolves. History repeatedly shows that the most effective leaders remained composed during moments of chaos. While others panicked, they analyzed. While others argued, they observed. Their calmness inspired confidence because people naturally trust individuals who remain steady under pressure. Panic spreads quickly, but so does composure. Your emotional state influences everyone around you, making self-control one of the most powerful forms of leadership. This discipline becomes especially important when facing disrespect. Many individuals intentionally provoke emotional reactions because they understand that anger clouds judgment. Once you lose control, you often make decisions that serve their interests rather than your own. Refusing to react denies them that satisfaction. Silence, a calm expression, or a simple statement delivered without hostility often carries more authority than an emotional confrontation. It communicates that your dignity cannot be shaken by someone else's behavior. Emotional control also protects your long-term goals. Temporary satisfaction gained from winning an argument is rarely worth sacrificing your reputation, relationships, or peace of mind. Wise individuals think beyond the present moment. They ask themselves whether their response will still seem intelligent tomorrow, next month, or next year. This perspective prevents countless unnecessary conflicts because they recognize that not every insult deserves an answer and not every criticism deserves their attention. They conserve their energy for battles that truly matter. Over time, this discipline reshapes their identity. Instead of being known as someone who is easily offended or emotionally unpredictable, they become recognized as calm, dependable, and difficult to manipulate. Their confidence no longer depends on controlling others because they have mastered the far greater challenge of controlling themselves. This quiet strength commands respect without demanding it, influences others without intimidation, and transforms every challenge into an opportunity to demonstrate character rather than emotion. proving that the highest form of power is not found in overpowering another person, but in remaining the master of your own mind, regardless of the circumstances surrounding you. One of the most difficult lessons in life is accepting that not everyone deserves continued access to you. Many people hold on to relationships long after respect has disappeared because they fear loneliness more than they value peace. They convince themselves that if they remain patient, forgiving, or understanding, the other person will eventually change. While growth is possible, repeated patterns reveal far more than temporary promises. When someone consistently belittles your ideas, ignores your boundaries, mocks your ambitions, or treats your kindness as weakness, they are showing you the role they expect you to play in their life. Ignoring these patterns does not protect the relationship, it only prolongs the damage. Human behavior is built upon repetition. What someone repeatedly chooses to do becomes a reflection of their character, not an accident. This is why wisdom requires paying attention to actions rather than becoming distracted by words. Apologies have value only when they are followed by change. Without change, they become tools that keep unhealthy cycles alive. Many individuals become trapped because they confuse history with loyalty. They believe that years invested in a relationship justify remaining in it forever. Time, however, does not transform disrespect into respect. The length of a relationship does not determine its quality. A connection that repeatedly drains your confidence, disturbs your peace, and weakens your sense of self is costing far more than it gives. The strongest individuals understand that walking away is sometimes an act of courage rather than defeat. Society often glorifies endurance, teaching people to fight for every relationship regardless of the cost. Yet there is a profound difference between perseverance and self-abandonment. Perseverance builds something healthy through mutual effort. Self-abandonment sacrifices your dignity to preserve something that no longer honors you. Knowing the difference is a sign of emotional maturity. Walking away does not require anger or revenge. It requires clarity. Revenge keeps you emotionally connected to those who have already proven they do not deserve your energy. Distance, on the other hand, allows healing to begin. Silence often communicates more strength than endless arguments because it demonstrates that your peace is no longer available for negotiation. There is no need to convince someone of your worth if they have repeatedly chosen not to recognize it. Your responsibility is not to force appreciation, but to protect your own well-being. Many people hesitate to leave because they fear starting over. They imagine the uncertainty ahead while forgetting the certainty of continued unhappiness if nothing changes. Every unhealthy relationship occupies space that could be filled by healthier opportunities, supportive friendships, meaningful partnerships, or simply the peace that comes from enjoying your own company. Solitude should never be feared when the alternative is constant disrespect. In fact, learning to stand comfortably alone is one of the greatest demonstrations of self-respect. It frees you from the desperate need to remain connected to people who diminish your value. Once you discover that your happiness does not depend on their presence, their ability to control you disappears. This inner freedom transforms every future relationship because you no longer tolerate behavior simply to avoid being alone. You begin choosing people based on shared values rather than emotional dependence. Your standards become clearer, your boundaries stronger, and your confidence more stable. Others notice this change because your decisions are no longer driven by fear, but by principle. They understand that access to your life is earned through trust, consistency, and mutual respect rather than assumed through familiarity. In time, you realize that protecting your peace is not an act of selfishness, but an act of wisdom, and that every step away from repeated disrespect is also a step toward becoming the kind of person who values their own dignity enough to never allow anyone to make them feel small simply because they refuse to walk away when respect no longer existed. Respect that lasts is never created by demanding it through force, titles, or intimidation. It is earned by becoming a person whose character, competence, and discipline make disrespect increasingly difficult. Many people spend their lives trying to convince others that they deserve appreciation, but true influence works differently. Instead of chasing recognition, they invest their energy in becoming so capable that their value becomes obvious. Human nature naturally respects those who solve problems, remain composed under pressure, and consistently deliver results. Words may attract attention for a moment, but ability earns lasting admiration. This is why your greatest response to those who underestimate you is not endless explanation, but continuous improvement. Every skill you develop becomes another reason for people to take you seriously. Every promise you keep strengthens your reputation. Every challenge you overcome quietly builds a level of confidence that cannot be manufactured through appearances alone. Too many people seek shortcuts to respect because they mistake popularity for influence. They focus on being noticed instead of becoming valuable. They spend more time talking about success than preparing for it. Yet the world has always rewarded those who create substance before seeking recognition. Excellence cannot remain hidden forever. It eventually attracts opportunities because genuine competence is difficult to ignore. Becoming valuable begins with mastering yourself. Discipline should become stronger than motivation because motivation changes with emotion, while discipline continues regardless of how you feel. Wake up when you plan to wake up. Finish the work you promised yourself you would complete. Continue learning when others become comfortable with what they already know. Every act of consistency strengthens your identity until success is no longer something you occasionally achieve, but something your habits naturally produce. Alongside discipline, cultivate knowledge that few people possess. Read deeply instead of relying on shallow opinions. Study history because it reveals repeating patterns of human behavior. Learn psychology because understanding people is often more valuable than trying to control them. Improve your communication because ideas only become powerful when they can be expressed clearly. Develop patience because many opportunities belong to those willing to wait while everyone else rushes. These qualities gradually separate you from the crowd. They make your presence memorable, not because you seek attention, but because you consistently offer something meaningful. At the same time, protect your integrity above all else. Skill without character creates temporary success but lasting distrust. When your actions consistently match your words, people begin believing what you say without requiring constant proof. Trust becomes part of your reputation, and reputation is one of the greatest forms of influence a person can possess. There will always be individuals who refuse to acknowledge your growth, no matter how much you improve. Do not allow their opinions to determine your direction. Your responsibility is not to convince everyone of your worth, but to continue building a life that reflects your highest standards. The strongest people understand that not every critic deserves a response. Many critics disappear the moment your results become undeniable. Success has a quiet way of answering questions that arguments never could. As your competence grows, your confidence changes naturally. You stop seeking approval because your belief in yourself is supported by evidence rather than hope. You carry yourself differently, make decisions with greater certainty, and refuse opportunities that compromise your principles. Others notice this transformation because confidence rooted in preparation cannot be imitated. It is revealed in your calmness, your consistency, and your refusal to settle for mediocrity. Over time, respect stops becoming something you ask for and becomes something your life naturally commands. People recognize that your standards are high because you first hold yourself accountable to them, and they understand that your presence carries weight not because you demanded attention, but because you devoted yourself to becoming the kind of person whose value speaks long before your words ever need to. Every form of lasting influence, begins with one principle that many people overlook. The way you see yourself determines the way the world eventually sees you. Self-respect is not built through compliments, achievements, or recognition from others. It is built in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when you choose discipline over excuses, honesty over convenience, and principles over temporary comfort. Many individuals search endlessly for respect from friends, family, colleagues, or strangers while neglecting the relationship they have with themselves. They accept situations that violate their values, ignore their own goals, and repeatedly break promises they make to themselves. Over time, this weakens their confidence because every broken promise becomes evidence that their own words cannot be trusted. The strongest people understand that self-respect begins by becoming someone you can rely on. Every commitment you honor, no matter how small, strengthens your belief in your own character. This quiet confidence cannot be taken away by criticism because it was never built upon the opinions of others. Human nature has an extraordinary ability to recognize inner certainty. People respond differently to someone who genuinely respects themselves. Such individuals do not desperately seek approval, nor do they fear disagreement. They speak with calmness because they do not feel the need to prove their worth. They remain steady during criticism because they know their identity is not determined by another person's judgment. This emotional stability creates a presence that naturally commands attention. Confidence rooted in self-respect is different from arrogance. Arrogance constantly seeks admiration because it depends on appearing superior. Self-respect requires no audience. It simply refuses to compromise its values for acceptance. This distinction is important because many confuse loudness with strength. The truly powerful person rarely needs to announce their importance. Their consistency, integrity, and composure communicate it without effort. Building self-respect requires difficult choices. It means refusing opportunities that violate your principles, even when they promise immediate rewards. It means ending relationships that repeatedly damage your peace, even when walking away feels painful. It means accepting responsibility for your mistakes instead of blaming circumstances or other people. Every one of these decisions strengthens your identity because they align your actions with your values. Integrity is created when your behavior reflects what you claim to believe. Without integrity, confidence eventually collapses because it lacks a solid foundation. Self-respect also transforms the standards you set for every relationship in your life. Once you value your own time, you stop allowing others to waste it. Once you value your peace, you stop entertaining unnecessary drama. Once you value your goals, you stop sacrificing them to satisfy people who contribute nothing to your growth. These changes are not signs of becoming distant or uncaring. They are signs that you have finally recognized the worth of your own life. Some people may resist these changes because they benefited from the version of you that constantly placed their needs above your own. Do not mistake their disappointment for proof that your standards are too high. Often it simply reveals that they were comfortable with your lack of boundaries. Continue honoring yourself despite their reactions. Every day offers another opportunity to strengthen self-respect through your choices. Wake with purpose, complete what you begin, speak truthfully, remain emotionally disciplined, and treat yourself with the same dignity you expect from others. As these habits become part of your character, something remarkable happens. Respect stops being something you chase because it becomes woven into your presence. People recognize your confidence without being told, your integrity without lengthy explanations, and your strength without dramatic displays. They understand that your standards cannot be negotiated because they are rooted in principles rather than emotions. This is where real influence begins, not in controlling other people, but in mastering yourself so completely that your character quietly inspires by respect wherever you go, making self-respect the invisible foundation upon which every lasting form of power, trust, and influence is built.